Clyburn now, Democrat from South Carolina, assistant Democratic leader as well. Good to see you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Craig.
Let's start with just your general reaction to the Supreme Court's decision this morning.
Well, it was a very disappointing decision. It was not a surprising one to me. I think that we are beginning to see with each one of these Supreme Court decisions exactly what the answer to President Trump's question was before the election when he asked, especially the black community, what do we have to lose? Well, we're finding out now exactly what we have to lose, and one of them is our good neighbor policy that we've practiced as a country for a long time. As you know, I grew up in a parsonage, and one of the things I learned was being a neighbor is not defined by church membership or ethnicity. It is designed by whoever can show compassion for one that is in need. And this, to me, is not a good neighbor decision on the part of the Supreme Court.
Your colleague, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, continues to face a fair amount of criticism for calling on people to harass Trump administration officials in public. Democrats, Congressman, Democrats appear to be backed into a corner a bit here. If you speak out too forcefully, you're labeled uncivil. If you don't, you're called spineless. How do you go about capturing legitimate opposition? What's going to be the strategy for your party heading into the midterms?
Well, my opposition to this administration has to do with its policy and some of its practices, not its rhetoric. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the president's rhetoric, and everybody is free, in my opinion, to practice their own. We have heard President Trump talk about people in very disparaging tones. Even several weeks ago, months now, he talked about low IQ Maxine. He had some of his supporters that talked about her hairstyle in very derogatory ways. Now they are speaking to their base. Maxine is speaking to her base. And so as far as I'm concerned, one is no more incredible than the other.
But you don't do that, Congressman. You've never engaged in name calling and vilifying. That's never been your style.
No, it's not. As I said to a group of young people this morning, I was taught at an early age that the best sign of a good education is good manners. And I try to practice a sign of a good education in what I do as I interact with people. But my way of doing it is what I think is required and expected by my base supporters, and other people do what they think is required by their base of voters. I would never say anything or the things that Trump says about people. I would never say that, even in private, I would say it. So he speaks to his base. Maxine speaks to her base. I'm not going to take ownership of what Trump says or what Maxine Waters says. I'm only going to be responsible of how I deal with my fellow man and how I express myself in public places.
President Trump, as you know, was in our home state last night. He's in South Carolina, not far from your district, in fact, district that borders yours. This is what he said about the Democratic Party.
This has become the party of Maxine Waters and Nancy Pelosi. That's who it is.
Is that true, Congressman? Are they the face of the Democratic Party?
This is the party of Jim Clyburn. This is the party of Jim Smith and Mandy Norrell there in South Carolina. We have a big tent party, and I'm pleased to be a part of it. This party is not defined by any one or two people. This party is defined by the broad brush of the American people, people who are basically good people. As elected Tocqueville told us years ago, the greatness of America is built upon the goodness of Americans. And if Americans fail to be good, this country will fail to be great.
Who's the leader? Who's the leader of the Democratic Party, though?
Well, we have a lot of people, and Nancy Pelosi is the leader of the House Democrats. Schumer is a leader of the Senate Democrats. We have other leaders in our party, all based upon what entity you may be speaking of. Schumer's got nothing to do with House Democrats, or very little, and same thing with Nancy, with Senate Democrats. We are defined by the roles that we play, and we are responsible for our own reactions and interactions with our constituents. That's why I'm standing here in front of Will Rogers, the party which is not an organized party. We're Democrats.
Really quickly, the president just mentioned in his back and forth with reporters, Congressman, he talked about Georgetown Steel, and I know that your district, like a lot of districts, it's kind of carved out a little weirdly. Is Georgetown Steel in your district?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Georgetown Steel is in Georgetown, which was in my district until 10 years ago.
That's how convenient. Congressman Jim Clyburn. Congressman, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you.